Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and we are all in for a real treat in today's episode because no matter what industry you're in, if you're ever sitting there saying, how do I convey my value? How do I show people how good I am at the things that I do? How can I serve the people that my skills and my talents and my insights can really deeply serve? Well, today's guest is going to bring a lot of clarity in all of those domains. So let me introduce you to our guest and fellow entrepreneur. Her name is Mandy Geyer. Mandy is the founder of Integral Edge Consulting and a former health insurance executive and consultant who spent nearly 20 years leading actuarial teams in cost of care strategy. Today, she helps actuaries, analysts, and health tech companies communicate their value with clarity and confidence, which we all need in our own businesses. Mandy works at the intersection of data, storytelling, and influence, helping technical experts get buy-in faster and helping benefits companies speak the language of actuaries, consultants, and buyers. When she's not consulting with startups or coaching future leaders, she's probably writing her book, running, or experimenting with a new plant-forward recipe with her husband. We're all going to learn a lot today. I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Mandy Geyer. All right, Mandy, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Heck yes, I'm so excited to dive super deep into all the amazing work that you do. But before we do that, take us beyond the bio. Who's Mandy? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so I like to think that I caught the entrepreneurial bug early in my life. When I was in grade school, I went to a super small grade school, and I always wanted a school newspaper, right? You always saw that on TV shows and movies, but we didn't have one because we were so small. So I kind of took it upon myself to create one and kind of printed one out and started distributing it to people at school with, really exciting things like what field trip we were taking or somebody who had an asthma attack at school. And from there, it's just kind of snowballed. So I have actually spent most of my career working in corporate, but have had kind of periods of time where I have kind of tried to satisfy that entrepreneurial bug. And now I am finally doing it for real and very excited to be doing it.
Yes, I love that. Well, I'm going to use that as a natural segue for you to introduce listeners to the cool work that you do at Integral Edge Consulting. Take us there. And also, I'm going to totally put you on the spot when you do take us there and introduce us to your company. What was that defining moment where you said, enough is enough, it's time, I'm doing this today?
Yeah. So I'll kind of start with what I'm doing. So I am an actuary, and a lot of people don't know what actuaries are, which is totally fine. It's usually about 50-50. But basically, I help companies manage risk. So I always worked in health insurance and worked for healthcare companies and large employers who offered health benefits to their employees. And so I helped them manage that risk. So help them figure out what benefits to offer, how much they were going to cost them, how much money they needed to set aside, and what changes they needed to implement. And what I saw was actuaries are like super smart people, really technical, really math heavy, but have a really hard time conveying their message. And that was the part of my work that I always loved. I always loved trying to find the story, convincing people that they needed to do something. And so I finally decided, you know what? That's what I want to do for a living. Like that's going to be my thing. It was just kind of a random thing that happened. I was actually on vacation just about a year ago, and the idea just kind of came to me. I was reading an article about somebody doing something really interesting, and I was like, man, what is the thing that I love and what's the thing that I want to do? And realized that was it. So I, talked with my husband. We figured out this was the right time for us to take that leap financially and give it a try. And it's been such an amazing experience so far. I work with not just actuaries, but I work with technical people, helping them convey those stories, helping them learn how to better influence, better communicate their ideas, especially when they've got data, right? We have a ton of data in the world now, and I feel like it doesn't always get communicated in a way that makes sense to people. So I help people do that, and I help companies do that as well and articulate their value proposition.
Yeah, I love that. And I went to college. You already know off air, I was joking with you that I was I was a math tutor in college. And so two of my roommates actually in college, they became actuaries. And so I witnessed the entirety of our senior year. Holy cow, the amount of hours that they studied to become actuaries. It is not an easy field to get into. And so we're talking about very smart people. And Mandy, that's why I almost feel like part of this episode is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which for people who aren't familiar with that says that the more knowledge that you have in any given area, the more you feel like you don't know anything at all, because you've realized, holy cow, there's a whole body of academics, there's a whole body of information and knowledge that I don't fully grasp yet. Whereas the ones who aren't all that knowledgeable have a high degree of confidence that, oh, I know all the things, I fully understand this concept in this topic that I'm studying about. And Mandy, I feel like there's so much of that in what we do as business owners, or even within our professional careers, that the better we are, the more valuable we are, the more powerful our skills and our talents are, the more we feel like, how the heck am I supposed to convey this? So walk us through the building blocks. How do you even begin to address that with these experts in their fields?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I am very familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect. I have felt it kind of throughout my life. But I think the biggest thing that people tend to forget when they're putting together, whether it's an email, a presentation, whatever it is, they tend to think about their story and not their audience's story. So I really try and encourage people to put yourself in your audience's shoes and what do they care about. So as an actuary, I spent a lot of time in finance, and so we would have to present to our CFO or other finance leaders, and I had to think about what's important to them, not necessarily what's important to me. And so they just care about the bottom line, right? What's it going to cost, or how much money is it going to save us? And that's what we need to lead with. I find a lot of professionals, especially in the data field, tend to want to walk you through their story. Well, here's how I did the analysis. Here's how I pulled the data. Here's the methodology I used. But I hate to say it, your audience just doesn't care. They just want to know the end result. I actually ran into this just this week. I'm working on, listing my house for sale, and I'm meeting with different realtors, and they're giving me information about, what they think my house is worth based on other houses that have sold in the neighborhood. And I got this huge, long, 12-page typed up report from one of the realtors. And all I did was just skim to the back and say, all I wanted was, how much is my house worth? I really don't care about the rest of this narrative. And I hate to say that because I know a lot of hard work went into it, but there was a better way to convey that message. And that's really what I try and help people do.
Mandy, I love that that's your real life example as well. I'm going through the exact same thing in this moment. And, your first question is, what is your recommended list price? And I can't tell you the amount of realtors that whip out a extensive pile of paper and they show me all these comp houses and all the things that they took into consideration. And to me, I often think about, this is where I found the most brilliant business owners that I know, is they really embrace that Albert Einstein concept of, if you want to impress somebody, make it complicated. If you want to help somebody, make it simple. And you and I are both very much feeling that in the real estate world, but you obviously navigate this with all of your clients and the various businesses that you help. How do you bring it back down to that simplicity? Because a lot of us, the beauty is in the details, and so also the devil is in the details. Obviously, we say that a lot. And so with that in mind, does it feel to your clients, to these actuaries, to the analysts, to the leaders, does it feel like, well, then we've just gotten rid of all the beauty of the work that I do? How do you help them simplify?
Yeah, it's really hard because it does. It feels like, a lot of people feel like maybe they're dumbing down all of this great technical work that they did, but that's not it. Because again, you have to put yourself in your audience's shoes. That is the number one rule I keep coming back to, is what do they want to know, and make sure you're giving them that story. So, another example I use with my actuaries and with my clients is, think about when you have to take your car into the shop to get it fixed. So the mechanic will go on and on and on and tell you all these things. And I don't know about you, but I kind of just tune out. And all I want to know is, can you fix it? how much is it going to cost and when is it going to be ready? Like, just tell me those 3 things. I don't need any of the technical details. And so that's how I explain that to my clients and other actuaries and technical professionals, that, hey, it's not that you're leaving out all the work you did and you're not dumbing it down, but you're giving your audience what they want and what they need. And so that's really the important part here, is making sure that you're meeting them where they are, and you have that information in your back pocket, right? So if you need to go deeper, if you need to get into the weeds and dive into the details, you can absolutely, certainly do that. But first, you want to make sure that they get what they need, and then you can go from there.
Mandy, I'm so curious, hearing the way you talk about this, how much of your work is not just about what is the information that you're conveying, but it's also about, here are the words that you're using to convey it. And then also, to add on another layer, is how you're saying it as well. How much are you focusing in on that stuff with your clients? Because they all matter, obviously. And part of it is science, but I'm sure part of it is art as well. So how do you help them navigate those 3 layers?
Yeah, because it's really hard to talk about one without the other, right? It's not just how you explain it, but yeah, absolutely. It's the words that you're using. It's the way you're conveying your message. And so I help them kind of put those things together. And so some of it is trial and error, right? Some of it is practice, because you don't always know necessarily what's going to work and what's not going to work for different audiences. So you have to try different things and try and get there. But yeah, we focus a lot on, using the right words, defining terminology, right? Especially when you're an expert in something, you can tend to think that everybody else knows what you're talking about. I use a really simple example, right? Being an actuary, we talk about trend a lot, and trend is really just like the year-over-year increase in cost or utilization or whatever metric we're looking at. But we talk about trend a lot, and we assume that everybody knows what we mean when we say trend is 7%. But some people don't. And so I have to remind my actuaries and technical people that not everybody understands those terms. So you really have to level set. And it's not that you're dumbing anything down, and it's not that you're treating your audience like they're dumb, but it's making sure that you're all on the same page, because you really need to be on the same page in order to fully understand the message. And so over defining terms is not a bad thing. Like, when in doubt, define the term, define the acronym, right? Every industry, I feel like, has so many different acronyms that they use that can be really confusing. And so it always helps to define those things. And I also talk a lot about, right, how you present, right? Things that help you feel a little more confident, because especially people who are numbers people, they might, feel a little nervous. They might not be sure of themselves. And so I give them some tips just on how to feel confident. One of them that I have found helpful is to stand when you're presenting, when you're speaking. I think that helps you feel a little more confident. And just paying attention to, your filler words when you're speaking. I can hear myself saying a lot. That's my filler word. And so it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to understand what your filler word is, pay attention to it, and then you can figure out how to eliminate that from your vocabulary over time. Again, nobody's perfect and nobody has to be perfect. And that's what I reiterate that a lot with people. This is all a learning experience. This is all practice, and you will get better the more you kind of work that muscle.
Yes, so well said. Mandy, I saw it recently on social media where it was a post that said, hey, if you're lucky enough that your parents are still around, be graceful with them, because you have to remember that it's their first time doing life as well. And it's all of our first time doing life. It's our kids' first times doing lives. It's important for us to remember all of that, and especially about ourselves. We do have to show ourselves grace as well. People often ask me, how do you have so much energy when you're on the air? Mandy, you just revealed one of those secrets. I believe that when I stand, I have so much energy, which is why I always do podcast interviews standing. I love my standing desk setup. And so that's really important. And then you talk about filler words, that comes through reps. And I think that that's so important. A lot of people have a tendency to point at people who do public speaking for a living, and they say, oh, well, they're a natural, but nobody's a natural in anything. It all came through reps. So Mandy, for your clients who obviously want to progress into the leaders that their career is leading them towards, what do those reps look like? How can we start getting those reps where they don't count so that we have some reps under our belt when they do count?
Yeah, I always say, one, practice filming yourself, and people hate that. I always hated that too, but it really helps to film yourself and watch it back. It's super uncomfortable, but it will make you better at speaking and presenting. I also tell people, just be honest. So when you have a chance to be in kind of a low stakes meeting, so whether it's, with your direct team, maybe that's a little lower risk, or you're with somebody that you're pretty comfortable with, be honest and just say, hey, I'm working on X, Y, or Z. If you're working on filler words, say, hey, I say a lot. Can you just help me eliminate that from my vocabulary? Maybe jot down how many times you hear it. That makes me more aware, and that kind of helps you for next time. So I am a big fan of just being honest and working with people, and because a lot of people will give you grace, and a lot of people will help you practice, and a lot of people want to help you be better. So, practice filming yourself and practice in lower stakes meetings, because that is going to help you be more confident and more prepared for the next time.
Yeah, for sure. And I would imagine that in today's day and age, there are so many more tools that we can use. For example, every single time I'm behind a microphone or a camera, it's all transcribed. We have transcriptions of every single episode. Obviously, these days, we are all in virtual meetings with AI note takers. We get transcriptions of all of that. I personally love bouncing those transcriptions off of various AI large language models and asking it for its opinion. Sometimes I feel like, oh gosh, I was looking for this perfect quote, or I was looking for this perfect example. How are ways I can navigate that? Obviously, I'm preaching about AI a little bit right now, but Mandy, from your perspective, what are some of those tools that are helping people, and how can they use those tools or AI in this process as well?
Yeah, I think AI is incredibly helpful. You have to just be aware of its limitations, right? I think exactly what you said. I think that's super helpful to use those transcripts and help look for the things that you want to communicate and maybe you didn't, or the things that you did really well. I think that's incredibly helpful. I also am a big fan of using AI when you're working on written communication. So maybe you're trying to type an email or put together a presentation. Use AI to get some ideas. Say, hey, how could I simplify this better? Or, hey, my audience is, HR. How can I say this better so that HR understands it? And so you can use AI to make things better and to practice and to get feedback. You just have to always remember that it is just a tool. And so you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt sometimes, because it's not perfect. But you can just pay attention and use what you can and use what makes sense. And then you can, use your own judgment as well. That's super important.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's something we're all figuring out. Again, coming to the fact that it's all of our first times doing all of these things. I think societally, professionally, we're all trying to figure out how AI can and should be used. And it's a topic of conversation in so many of our episodes here on the show. So super grateful hearing your perspective on that. I've got to ask you this, as a marketer by default, I always feel like I wear a marketing hat so frequently. I often think about triggers of people to make decisions, catalysts to these decisions. Mandy, thinking about your field and the depth and breadth of the client base that you work with, I think that they're so cool in so many different ways. What's usually the trigger for people to reach out to ask you for help? Is it that they recently got promoted? Is it that they're looking for that inflection point in their company's growth trajectory? What are some of those triggers that make people say, you know what, now's the time. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to take this more seriously.
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about individual clients, it's typically people who tend to feel a little overlooked at work. Maybe they feel like they should be moving up quicker than they are, or they've consistently gotten feedback from their boss that, hey, you need to be more strategic, or you need to be more influential. That's usually when individuals will come to me. When I work with organizations to help them refine their story, sometimes it's, you know what, we've been telling this same value story for years and it hasn't really gotten us anywhere. We need a fresh set of eyes. Or it's a new company. I've worked with some new healthcare tech startups, and they're just like figuring this out for the first time. Like, hey, we need to figure out what our financial value is. We have this great idea for this product that's going to help, make healthcare more affordable or easier to access, but they need to understand how their buyer thinks. They need to understand where that value is going to come from. And that's where I come in and help them articulate that story. Since I have been on the other side of the table for so long, I can help them see what actuaries and what other people in the healthcare field are going to think, and how they're going to react to their value story, and how they can maybe improve it.
Yeah, and it's cool thinking about that role that you play alongside, especially I'll pick on the companies right now, because obviously as a business owner myself, I feel like that B2B space is so much fun to work through these big problems that have impact at scale. And when I think about you helping them identify that story, I feel like it's probably a very creative process, because stories are these ethereal things. Stories take on a life of their own. Stories invoke emotion. There's so much that goes into it. And I always love that topic that quote from Abraham Lincoln, where he said, if you want me to give a 5-hour speech, I'm ready to go right now. If you want me to give a 5-minute speech, I'm going to need 5 hours to prepare. And the same is true in storytelling, is that it's hard to condense a story. If we've got all the time in the world, gosh, we could just yap for hours and hours. But Mandy, your creative process takes those stories down to the real heart of it, something that's punchy, that can be easily conveyed. What does that process look like? Is it a case of first get everything on the table and then you start filtering, or how do you even start to get close there?
That's generally how I start. I actually heard a quote from Mike Birbiglia. He's a stand-up comedian. He's really funny. And he made the comment that he puts together like 3 to 4 hours of material for a 1-hour special. And I think about presentations a lot the same way, right? Sometimes it helps to just put it all out there and then take a step back and think, okay, what's the 1, 2, or 3 messages I'm trying to convey with this presentation? And which of these slides or which of these data points helps support that and which don't? And so then you can start filtering things out. And then kind of once you've taken that pass, that's when you then kind of sit in your audience's shoes and say, okay, what does my audience really care about when it comes to these messages or this, what I need them to understand? And then you can filter out even more. So yeah, it's kind of starting with the world. I find that easier, and then whittling it down until you get a very concise message that's going to resonate with your audience and make sense to them.
Yeah, Mandy, you've mentioned slides a few times and visuals, and I want to go there with you because you've been in these boardrooms and you've seen the way that various people present their findings, their analysis, present their entire business idea. So many of these important conversations, and I know that there's a lot of stylistic differences. For me, just give me a slide with a picture and I'll just talk about something that has to do with what that picture is. But what is that happy medium? Where should we view visuals in the role that they play and whatever it is that we're trying to express and convey?
Yeah, I'm personally a big fan of less is more. So again, a slide with a single picture that you can speak to, that's so much better than 30 slides that are just full of text that everybody is either sitting there reading and not listening to you, or just so overwhelmed by it that they've completely tuned out. So I always tell people to remember that you are the presentation, not your slide deck or the images that you're projecting. Those are there to support your message, but you're the one there presenting. So you should have the story, and you need to drive the conversation. You need to drive home the points that you need your audience to understand, not your slides. Like, they shouldn't do the work for you. They should just help support you. So I think less is more when it comes to slides. We all tend to overdo it with the number of slides we put together. I mean, I've seen people put together like 100 slide decks, and I'm like, that's not a slide deck. We need to cut that down. That's maybe a dashboard. That's something that you can send somebody later, but nobody is going to sit through a meeting where you're flipping through 100 slides with their really dense information. So again, it's all about that simplification and bringing it down to something that your audience can understand and that just is there to support your message, not repeat your message. You don't want to sit there and just read slides to people.
Yeah, for sure. We've all definitely been in those meetings. I love the fact that you called that out. I'm going to follow that path right on down then, because the other thing that we've all seen in meetings is someone who is overly scripted, someone who is clearly has not even thought about what it is that they want to say. There's two sides of that coin as well. I'm a big fan of bullet points. Just give me a few key topics and I'll make my way through all of those topics. Mandy, what is your process and how do you help others and to put that together, especially for people? I feel like a lot of people are more on the side of, oh, I want a script. I've always found a script adds so much pressure to me, and I know I'm going to totally forget it, and then I don't know what I'm going to say in those moments. So how do you coach people through those questions and that approach?
Yeah, sometimes I tell people just to record themselves reading a script and then watch it back and tell me how engaging that was. And it's probably not. I mean, we've all sat in meetings where people are reading a script and like, you stop paying attention. And so once you recognize that, I think that helps you feel a little bit better about being a little more off the cuff. I encourage people to use bullet points, right? Understand what you want to say and have those bullet points, but don't write it out, because again, you're going to get flustered too. If you go off script, if you forget exactly what you're going to say, you're going to feel flustered, and it's not going to go well. So you really want to understand what you're presenting. You don't want to just be reading a script. And so if you feel like you need a script, then that probably means you don't totally understand what it is you're presenting and need to spend a little bit more time with it. That way you can speak about it a little more freely in a way that people will want to hear and will want to listen, right? Because that's the goal at the end of the day. We don't want people to tune out during our presentations. We want people to pay attention, and we want them to take away the message. And so by reading a script, you're not going to get there. By not preparing at all, you're not going to get there either. You need to understand the gist of what you're going to say, and it'll come together once you're in the meeting.
Yes, I totally agree. Listeners, this is precisely why we are an entirely unscripted show. None of our guests have any idea where I'm going to go. And Mandy, it's because I feel like the good stuff always comes out, is that it's really important that when you know your material, which that's obviously at the heart, that is a baseline understanding in our conversation today, then we've also got to have that trust in ourselves in order to convey that message. So really powerful work that you're doing there. I knew time would fly by with you, so I want to switch gears a little bit, because I do want to talk to Mandy, the founder, as well. Not just the expert, and you're amazing at all the things that you do alongside your clients, but now as the founder of your own company, you have to wear literally all of the hats. You have to think about accounting, you have to think about marketing, you have to think about your growth trajectory. How has that side of the entrepreneurial journey been for you? Did it entirely live up to that entrepreneurial DNA that you said, I want to do this one day, or have there been some pleasant or maybe unpleasant surprises along the way? I'd love for you to take us behind the scenes.
Yeah, I have actually loved it. I did not think that I would love doing administrative tasks and figuring out marketing and sales and websites and accounting, but I love it. Like, the days have flown by ever since I kind of started my own company, way more than they ever did when I was in corporate doing a very defined job. Now, there's been frustrating at times, don't get me wrong. When I have to spend a couple hours on the phone with Microsoft because my email's not working, then yeah, I get a little frustrated. But at the end of the day, I really, truly love what I'm doing, and I love all the pieces of it. I love how creative I get to be. I love how I get to try new things. I mean, I'm constantly trying to put myself in new and uncomfortable situations just so I can try things, whether it's making videos to post online, or writing for different publications, things that I would never have done when I was working a corporate job. Getting the chance to do those as an entrepreneur is so fun. Getting to do this podcast, it's amazing. The number of conversations that I've had with people ever since kind of starting my own company, I just never would have done it. Just the number of things I've been able to do has just been incredible, and I have absolutely loved every single day.
Oh, yes. I love to hear that. That makes me so happy to hear entrepreneur to entrepreneur. And I know that that's going to be inspiring for so many of our listeners, because that's the real stuff. And Mandy, I'm going to call out, it's your attitude towards those things, because even there you highlighted not everything works all the time. If your email server breaks, that is one of the most frustrating things we can all go through. But your attitude towards, holy cow, I get to solve this problem. I get to have these problems because I'm a business owner these days. That is incredible. And it's so much because of your energy that you bring to the table, and it shines through in the way that you've shown up with us here today, and I'm sure it shines through in the way that you show up with and for clients. So huge kudos to you. I'm going to use that as a segue for my final question, because that's the entrepreneurial good stuff right there. And I'd love to ask you, what's your best piece of advice for listeners, knowing that we're being listened to by both wantrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur? What's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, so I've listened to the podcast, so I've gone back and forth. I have had 4 different answers in my head for this question, the one question that I kind of knew was coming. But to me, I think I'm going to go with, make sure you're taking time and space every day to be alone. And this is going to sound like kind of an odd thing, but when you're working a job, whether you're working a corporate job or whether you're an entrepreneur, you can get so wrapped up in the day to day, and it doesn't leave space for creativity. And you need that no matter what you're doing, no matter what your job is, you need that space for creativity and clarity. And so find a way to step back every single day, Some days it may be 5 minutes, some days it may be 30. I personally take a walk pretty much every afternoon just to clear my head, disconnect, and my best ideas and creative thoughts come when I'm on that walk, because I'm not worried about who's emailing me, who's calling me, what anybody needs. I am just clearing my head, and that's when I get my best ideas and my clarity. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. No matter what you're doing, you need that space, and so make sure you're taking some space.
Oh, Mandy, I love that advice, and I've got to call myself out there because you gave that advice in the presence of an extreme extrovert. I never want to be alone, but you're absolutely spot on. You use that word space so intentionally there about we have to allow that space for the magic to bubble up to the surface in our minds and in our strategies and the way that we serve our clients. So I love that advice for our listeners. I'm also very excited for listeners to check out all the cool things that you're doing with your company. I will say, from the outside looking in, everything about your messaging, about your brand, the way that you've intentionally structured it, about the way that you show up in your brand, it's so inviting, it's so warm, and it inspires us to step into the best version of ourselves in our careers, whatever that may be. So Mandy, for listeners who want to find all this cool stuff, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, you can visit my website at integraledgeconsulting.com. I know it's kind of a mouthful. I also post a lot on LinkedIn, so you can always follow me on LinkedIn at Mandy Geyer. And I also have a separate kind of little side business with my husband called Farm Table Health, where we talk about nutrition and food and all of the ways that we have discovered to be healthy. He's a chef, so we have a lot of cool stuff from him too. So you can follow me there as well.
Yes, that is incredible. I love all these things that you guys are up to. So listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about remembering any of this stuff. You can click right on through from the show notes. Definitely check that out. We're also linking to Mandy's personal LinkedIn there. So if you want to reach out, continue the conversation. If you find yourself in one of these industries and in this predicament, you hear how much Mandy loves helping you work through this. Or if you've got actuarial friends or former college roommates, do not be shy in linking them up with all the incredible work that Mandy is doing. So Mandy, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It was great to talk with you.